Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the shed here at Archaeo Towers. This morning, the world is stunned by news from Paris that last night Notre-Dame Cathedral caught fire. Yesterday evening, all I could do was watch with increasing horror as that gorgeous 13th century Gothic masterpiece of a roof was first engulfed by smoke, then embers and fire and flame, to the point that eventually the spire itself snapped and collapsed into the building. Initially I feared the worst, as I'm sure so many of you out there did as well. And at the moment it looks as though the fire was an accident. Seemingly some element of the ongoing restoration works went awry. A tool or a chemical or lighting or something sparked in the roof. The investigation is ongoing. But my fears were total. That collapse and the interior of what is arguably the most impressive and important example of Gothic architecture on the planet was going to be catastrophic and total. That damage would just compromise the building in its entirety. However, I'm making this video because this morning it seems that images coming out of the interior of Notre Dame give us some cause for hope. And it's worth highlighting because it's a really good example of the strength and the engineering prowess of Gothic architecture. And it all has to do with a very humble idea, and that is the shape of an egg. I used to live and work in York, and York Minster is arguably the second most impressive example of Gothic architecture on the planet, although many people in York would argue the point with you on that. But the point is, I was truly honoured and blessed to live in the shadow of that tremendous building for a few years. And whenever I visited York Minster, I couldn't help but be reminded of the fact that it had survived its own fire back in 1984. July 1984 saw York Minster catch fire, and photos and there's a painting, for example, from the time are truly dramatic, and you can see why people feared the worst for the future of the Minster. But they did rebuild, and the Minster is still standing today, and it's doing better than ever. And all of this is because of Gothic architecture. Now, arguably, the fire started partly because of Gothic architecture as well, but it's all really to do with the fact that Gothic architecture is trying to let in as much air and light into the building as possible, in a sort of a theological move to bring the world into the church. Gothic architecture sought to create as much space and holes as possible, and so something like a roof can sadly catch fire quite easily. Like a well-made pile of kindling, there's plenty of air in there to fuel any flames. However, a crucial requirement of this desire to get as much light and air into the building as possible was substantial engineering solutions, typified in fact by features such as the flying buttresses that you see on buildings like Notre-Dame Cathedral and York Minster. These spider-like legs almost transfer the weight of the building away from the structure itself, meaning you can have windows in your stone wall and not compromise its strength. This Gothic architectural philosophy also applied to the interior ceilings of such buildings. They had to be high up and elegant, allowing the beauty of creation to be magnified, but they also therefore had to be strong and as light as possible. And this is where medieval architects hit upon a genius notion, for me typified by the ceiling of the chapel at King's College, Cambridge. The beautiful corbelled ceiling has the proportional thickness of an eggshell. Now here we have 6 eggs, locally grown, free range of course, and these eggs are strong in a very particular way. They're designed to take the weight of the bird sitting on them. In fact, here I have a locally made Wall's End brick that I can put onto these eggs, and incidentally I flattened down these little cardboard bits so the tops of the eggs are proud. I can put onto these eggs and the eggs hold. The proportions of an egg give the ceiling beauty but also strength, despite being incredibly thin. An elegant solution to a tremendous engineering problem. These eggs are fine, and I can take the brick off them, and they have indeed survived. But what we see in the photos coming out of Notre-Dame Cathedral this morning is another strength of this solution. You see, these eggs are effectively compartmentalized. The different sections, the different corbels of the ceiling are strong of and unto themselves as much as with each other. And so, if something like a spire collapses into the building, like so, what happens is that one egg is compromised, but the others remain strong. And that is exactly what we see in those photos. Yes, it looks catastrophic. Yes, it looks deeply, deeply troubling. But the spire has only compromised one of those egg shapes. The rest of the ceiling, while damaged, looks largely intact, and it's because of this structure, because of Gothic architecture. Now, other things come into play in the case of Notre-Dame Cathedral. A couple of years ago it was highlighted that pollution and erosion was compromising the stone of the structure, and that restoration was required. And we can only hope that heat, along with the cold of the fire, the fire fighting techniques, the water itself hasn't compromised the stone of the building. But these innate strengths in that architecture give us cause for hope. And so this morning, when we hear French authorities reassuring the world that Notre-Dame Cathedral has largely been saved, that it is structurally sound, in particular the two iconic towers at the western entrance to the cathedral are not in danger of collapse, this is the reason, the resilience and the genius of medieval Gothic architecture. And I figured this was a little silver lining of a reflection at a very dark time. If the building wasn't so well made, and if those people back then didn't know what they were doing, it would have been entirely lost. And so, as an archaeologist, as a historian, as a human being, my thoughts are absolutely with the people of Paris and France today. But hopefully this serves as a reminder that this building is resilient and strong. It is well made, and it will continue in a new form, in a modified form. We have lost something wonderful in that 13th century Gothic roof, but that it still stands is a testament to medieval architecture, to the people of France, heck, to humanity. Long live Notre Dame. Thank you for watching, and until next time, do take care. Goodbye.